I was going to wait for Rob, but we'll get started on this. I think it's just a real generalization about the future of radio, what we believe on the label side, the importance of what radio is. And I want to preface this by saying for 40 years in this business, I've heard why radio was going to die. For the last 15 years, you hear radio is dying. I could tell you from the perspective of Atlantic Records, we have 2 promotion departments for the main reason because we know the importance and the success that radio brings to us breaking artists. I think Pup said it best last night. The DJ in radio is the connection to people in the music. And I am 1,000% a believer in the partners that we have in radio. We don't fight, we have good battles. We have differences of opinions, and I think that's what makes the world go round. But I want to talk about, and I want to get all of their opinions on what they see their place is in the breaking of music and new artists, which has been and will always be the lifeblood of our business. There's other places now for music to be exposed, but in 1978, there were clubs that exposed music, and there's always going to be new avenues. I know when radio supports a song, we see the difference from streams, sales, and the breaking of an artist. And we see the difference in the merch that 21 Pilots can sell from when they were here to when radio helped bring them to the next platform. And we can see that on Ed Sheeran, we can see that on any artist inside of our company. So radio is and will always be the most important piece of the pie to the people at Atlantic Records, and I believe to everybody on the label side. So I guess my first question, and I definitely want to throw it out to everybody here, is where do you see your stations with the world of streaming, with what goes on in clubs and every place else in helping expose music? Where do you feel your place is in that trajectory in going up, in exploding an artist where they become that mass appeal superstar that we're all looking for, radio and records? I'm going to start with Terry.
I'll jump in. I think we have a seat at the table just like every other platform does, and I think radio is vital to breaking new artists, to be honest with you. I'm in Houston, so I have certainly a special circumstance where there's a robust musical culture in the city already, so there's a huge influx of artists from the city and also from the region that we try to keep in touch with and make sure that we feel what the pulse is going on with what they're doing. But I think radio has a front and center seat at the table, because one thing that streaming doesn't give listeners or consumers of the product, they don't curate the music. They make it out there and it's available to you, but they don't go in depth. They can't tell you about the artist. They can't make a personal connection for you. And I think that's where radio can stand out to make the difference. Every song doesn't get added to the playlist out the gate, but there are things that we can do creatively as partners to curate the artist and also to expose the artist in the marketplace. And ultimately, that's what it's about. And radio, to me, is still the #1 conduit to building and making that connection.
Totally agree. I think when it comes to streaming, we're still trying to figure out what it means. And I sit in many meetings where something will stream and they'll automatically say, go to radio, it's a Radiohead. I go, no, 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 no. So we're learning just as much as you're looking at new data, new information. Something might Shazam, something may not Shazam. So I think we're all learning. I think it's wonderful that we have different places to look at information. But I think, and I'm going to throw this out to you guys now, how much are you still using your gut for a song that you believe may fit on your radio station? I'm going to throw it out to you, Rob, because I came up to visit you 2 weeks ago and we talked about Clean Bandit. The data's there. How much of the gut use to know if it's right for your audience are you still using? And how is that in percentage-wise with all the other bits of information you look at?
We don't use gut. I just look at Shazam and streaming. That's it.
No, you don't.
No.
Because if that was true, we'd have a lot more airplay.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, let's remember, what we all got into this business for, I think, was for the love of the music, for the opportunity to interact with other people. I think the most important thing for a programmer, and obviously I oversee a format, so we're always talking to the PDs and trying to mentor them, and because there are PDs of many different levels. You have new PDs that are just starting out, and then you got some veteran PDs that have seen, you know, many different waves of things come through. I think the most important thing to tell them is that you still need to use your gut. I think that's the most important thing. Listen to music. Take time out of your day. Just like they're supposed to be listening to their radio stations, hearing what actually is playing on the air, they need to spend time listening to music. And there's commute time every single day. Nobody can say that they don't have any time to sit down and listen to the music. The gut is probably the number one thing. And then when you can get the gut to kind of align with metrics after you take that shot on the song, then you know that you're on the right path. There's going to be some times where your gut says to go with something, and then you're going to look at the metrics and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't play out. I think the tricky thing for a lot of programmers is that the metrics don't always match. You know, there may be some great streaming or Shazam stories, but then when you go and you put it into your call-out research, the call-out seems to be, the wave of call-out seems to be 5, 6, 7 weeks behind. And that's a real frustrating thing, I think, for labels, because you start to see the metrics really start popping, and you don't understand why radio, is not on the same wavelength as the other metrics. But we're seeing songs die on the chart and then come back really strong in research.
Well, I think, and I want to throw this out to Albie, who I've known for probably as long as he's been in radio, who was one of those gut-driven people in Hartford and then in Washington and throughout his career. And how are you utilizing the love of a song that you feel you know your market so well that I'm playing this, fuck everything else for the moment. I'll look back in 6 weeks to see if it's doing what I believe it'll do.
In the current situation I'm in, that's I got to play an interesting game with the people that I have to convince that the evil overseers, put it to you that way. So if I hear a song,
Are those called insultants or consultants?
the evil little minions that hang out in the back. Good guy, good people. I have autonomy. I'm not dictated to play these particular songs, but in my current situation is where you have to kind of pick and choose. What I do is I surround myself with people that have really good ears. I give them, you bring me stuff, let's go through it. Then I find that one and go, yeah. So then what I do is I work the evil little minions the way you guys would work us. So I will go and put in the mix show here. I'll put it in the top 5 at 5 in the afternoon drive. And I start to sprinkle it, and then I'm looking for a particular metrics that pop. Once that metrics pops, and my gut's been pretty good over my career, then I'll go, hey, look at number blank on this sheet, because I think that, and I've been working the evil minions on those particular new songs. So I've learned from you and other people how to promote to my bosses. And that's how I get it done.
Very interesting. Orlando.
Hey, Bulos.
How you doing, Baldy?
The Bulos bunch.
Hi, handsome.
Hey, there's a room upstairs, guys.
Wait, let me say something, though, because I learned something last night that was new. We were up in Vice's room listening to his new song. He's on Atlantic now. And he said something, and I didn't get the first part, but I started taping him on IG because I'm like, this is why we're here. He's like, I have a record now, and I got 90 million streams on Spotify. And he's like, and none of them meant anything to my gigs. He's like, these people didn't know the music. They didn't know the song. They didn't have the passion level. He's like, that told me as a kid who started at Power 106 and who is a DJ to the culture and still in this culture, that I need radio, that I have to have radio. So we pontificate about it all the time, but last night I saw it in real time. This is a kid that has a brand new record, a brand new deal, excited, new hats, merch, all this stuff, and he's like 90 million. I'm like, I'm in here hearing for the first time, and you got 90 million spins? And he's like, and it didn't do shit for me. And he's like, radio still is the thing. And when we had Pat Riley
Because
speak at
radio
one of our things.
quantifies it. When radio plays
It's a
and
stamp.
you're telling people...
It's real.
It's real. It's
It's
great.
a connection. We got into this because DJs connected with us as children, as high schoolers, when we were impressionable. And now, when Pat Riley once told us, the thing that is the thing has to remain the thing. He said, most people don't know how to say it, can't remember it, but the thing that is the thing, if you came here for a championship, that's the thing. We're not building great men, we're not building great fathers, we're winning a championship. You know, that's the Belichick rule, win. Fuck all the rest of that stuff, go to jail, do whatever, but come here on Sunday and win. That's the thing. So our connection with the audience is always gonna be paramount to anything. I mean, there's a record right now by Lecrae that I love, and those moments don't happen with just streaming services. Because we brought him in, I didn't know of Lecrae, but a lot of the Christian listeners that we had were lambasting me because we weren't playing this kid. And I wasn't up on him. I'm like, Lou, he's a gospel artist, whatever. So then this record comes along, Blessings, and I'm like, oh my God, we can actually, you know, include a lot of these people over the years who've been reaching out to me. They weren't reaching out to streaming. They were saying, hey, Orlando, I listened to you, and I think this would fit. That's a relationship. So when I brought him in, phones blew up, and we had such a rapport that they reached out to us and said, would you like to debut his new song with Tori Kelly, because we know your history with Tori. We end up taking over the kid's Facebook Live, sending it to the world. I mean, people from South Africa are like hitting us, and we're like, whoa, what the hell? That was a moment that we created through the caveat of radio. I think it's important, and I think it's not going to be put aside.
Joe, I have a question for you. You're in a very heated battle in South Florida. How quick are you to look to find music locally that you can beat Power and beat Y100 too, that could really set yourself apart as that great radio station in South Florida?
I think being open to new artists that are local. South Florida has a lot of talent in our market in multiple formats. On the urban side, there's actually been airplay and success with several different artists. On the top 40 side, similar. I mean, we had a couple of guys come in who have their own local following and just create moments. As Orlando said, I'm going to co-sign that because I think music is emotional. And so as you connect the emotions with the artist and their fans, and we're the outlet for it specifically with local artists, because there's that basis of their fans that are already existing within our market. So I think anytime we're able to bring that together, whether they're being exposed for the first time on the radio, which we've had a couple of times, and watching that experience, watching them on their Facebook Live, watching these things happen, it's incredible. I think if there's talent, it's all about the music. If there's talent and it is justified to bring that person in and have even a listener, it doesn't necessarily have to be I'm putting this in rotation. We've done some great listener events in our Penthouse studio with local talent, with new upcoming talent, exposing them to our listeners and some of their fans who had this amazing experience that just kind of took things to a different level. And for me, watching that's an indication. Again, going with Gut, it's I think Gut is part of our tools. It's just there's call out and there's Shazam numbers and there's all these different tools, but Gut is the consistent. And if you kind of see something and when they're live with you and you're able to watch their interaction, you can see a star. You can feel that in the room. There's an energy that you're just like, oh wow, I don't know, there's something though. I don't know, there's something.
There is a huge place for streaming, though. Everybody up here recognizes that. So it's not like the old versus the new.
Right.
We're not shitting on streaming because it has a place at the table. That buzz angle chart is just as important as everything else that I look at because they're all tools. But like Chance the Rapper came from streaming because the hip kids are streaming that. And I'm like, who the fuck is Chance the Rapper?
And I just think it's part of the journey, though. It's not radio's not the end. Like
it's
radio,
not, yeah.
Right? It's a journey. Like the artist's journey that on the record side is you're taking the artist and this is where we're going. And some artists are going to live in this space, and some artists are going to be right in radio. It's like this is their world. Let's start them here and expand them there. Some are touring and having amazing.
We've seen it with Little Uzi Vert. Okay, that exploded.
Still streaming, number 3 in Tampa. Still number 3.
We initially didn't have plans to even go with him to radio. But the marketplace kind of dictated it, and it just kept driving itself.
It exploded.
There's
The
a passion
other
with
thing-
Uzi.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead, Rob.
I was going to say the other thing that I'm thinking of as we're talking about this is all the different opportunities now that exist at radio stations where they've created lounges and areas for performing. Like when you think years ago, you know, an artist would come to the radio station, maybe you would bring some listeners into the kitchen, they would stand around and they get to do a meet and greet. Now, radio has really upped its game where we have alternatives to just jumping right on the radio. In some cases, the artist comes to the station, the jock puts them on the air. In other cases, the artist comes to the radio station, they perform in the lounge, you have a bunch of listeners. You know, with the social media component now, we're able to reach out to that artist's fans, bring them to our radio station, whether or not they're listeners or not, and let them participate in an event that we can own. So whether it's, you know, KTU's event, whether it's, you know, Hits event, whatever it is, we can take ownership of it if we choose to. And most of the time, the labels that are smart are setting and teeing their artists up for those opportunities because it's warming them up. It's almost like the pregame before the actual game. Maybe something's already developing in the market based on streaming
It's
or
part
sales.
of our strategy on just about everything that we release.
But it's
Where does
great, though, to have that
component fit in?
opportunity because when you think years ago, it wasn't as polished.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like now we're doing a better job of working together. We're not necessarily giving you the ad in some cases out of the gate, but at least we're trying
Or
to build
never.
a foundation. Yeah, or never.
Well, that's also
Shots fired.
Terry, like to say something.
Well, the other thing that I want to say is that a lot of these artists, Houston is robust as an example of shows continually coming through the marketplace. A lot of times artists that are getting no play on radio. I'm thinking back right now to Big Crit, who a Def Jam artist. Def Jam wasn't messing with Big Crit at all, but he came to Houston, line all around the building, show was sold out. I'd never had a conversation about this kid. And when I found out what was happening with the artist, I was able to get in touch with the manager. I'm like, yo, send me something because you can't come into Houston, Texas, sell out a show. Kids are out there at 3 o'clock and there's not something going on. I need to find something from this artist that I can bring to radio to help, you know, continue to connect the station to the community locally. And the next thing you know, I get a call from Def Jam. We're like, oh, he signed us. I was like, okay. And now I got 40 people on the phone talking to me about Big Crit, and then they put a single out, so forth and so on. So I think in addition to streaming and those metrics, which are great, I think it's also being aware of who's coming through the marketplace or the cities that are around you, selling out shows and able to move the crowd. And I think you need to be involved in those conversations. And even if you don't get to go to everything, because sometimes as programmers, we can't be everywhere, but that's why we have teams. So trusting in your team, sending your team out, having people come back and report to you, what was the dopest moment at the show? You know, what happened at the show? And so what's the song that everybody knew? We need to know that information. So we have all these great metrics with Shazam, and I love BuzzAngle and all of the other things that we have, but it's also still being able to see artists and their interaction with their fan base in our marketplace, and how do we capture that? One of the craziest questions somebody ever asked me about radio was, how do we get millennials to come back to radio? I thought the question was ludicrous, because in my thinking, we don't sit here and say, hey, come to us, come to us, come to us. That's super arrogant. We have a responsibility as radio to put ourselves where millennials are and be relevant in their world, and then they will hopefully find their way back to us. I think that's the better way to take it.
It's totally a shotgun blast out to what we do because we send it out and we try and sift as many as we can get back, but we stay in their lanes. I mean, I still remember those people who mentioned that Lecrae we mentioned, or the Chance the Rapper kid. The kid that walked into my office and was like, you're tripping about Chance the Rapper. I thought he was way too cool for the room. But because they kept walking in my office, these little 18 to 20-year-old kids, I'm like, I'm missing something. So when I got invited to a show, I had to go just for my own, you know, edification. And I walked away like, okay, I get it. And now we have this great relationship with this pseudo, I don't know if he's an artist, but he's an artist or whatever. But it's making that part of the audience now feel ingratiated to the station. Like, wow, these people are fucking with Chance. No one else in the market is. So that makes radio mean something to them. So I'm not winning them back, but I'm meeting them on their level.
That's good to know. I have another question. All of us grew up in a business where there was a lot of hype and bullshit. Okay, the charts were all fake. SoundScan was fake. TRL was manipulated. No. Yeah.
Wait, Bulos, what are you
So,
saying? What? No.
What I'm saying is,
Santa
I'm
Claus
just
ain't
trying-
real, man.
Santa
What
Claus
else
ain't
you gonna
real.
tell us? Jesus.
And I worked many records that went top 5 that nobody in
Thing
this
you'll
room
tell us
probably
is it
ever
doesn't
heard of.
happen to every
So,
man.
With that said, when we come to you, as labels come to you with Shazam information or some local streaming information, do you still look at it from a skeptical perspective? It's very important because I think if I was in radio, I'd be very skeptical because I watched an industry. I hate to use the word manipulate, but we manipulated charts for our own advantages for a very long time. So if you look at it from that skeptical perspective, and you're only going to trust your call out, and you're only going to trust if you do your M scores because it's the only thing you feel we can't manipulate, how much percentage of that other new information, that data, are you utilizing to make decisions on your music? Because I've had radio say to me, well, it's now not Shazamming, therefore I don't think I should play it. But then when you do have a song that might be Shazamming, then there's another reason because they may not believe it. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. I just like everybody's perspective of how you're looking at it, because it does become a good excuse because you just don't feel it there, quite frankly, to maybe want to play a song. So I'm just curious to how you're looking at the new bits of information, believing it, and then using it to maybe not play something because that's when you choose to believe in it.
Go ahead, Albie.
I look at it through a filter. There was the guy that taught me how to do it, Jerry Clifton, who's now retired, always said to me, listen to the bullshit, filter through what you think is bullshit, and then go with your gut. So that's the rule that I've always used, is to listen to you when you get on the phone on a Monday and go screaming and yelling about this, that, and the other thing. And I'll go, okay, well, that's bullshit there, but he's got a point there, and that's a little bit of bullshit there. And at the end of the day, as I go through all the filters, does my gut still say either Bulos is right or Bulos is wrong? And then you go by that decision.
When was I ever wrong?
Ask you, never. You were never wrong.
Thank you.
I think also, there's ways to find out if something is bullshit or not, to be honest with you. So there was a record, the Marion Hill Down record. I saw that on Shazam, #1 Shazam in the marketplace, no radio airplay whatsoever. But I had to start figuring out how was it Shazamming? Well, it was the Apple commercial, and it was Shazamming off the television. And then you also have to be aware with things like Shazam, who's on it mostly? It's the younger set. Well, where are they also being exposed to music? Well, you go to Forever 21 because you take your niece to go shopping, and they're playing whatever service they're playing that's playing whatever songs. So when a label comes to me with some hype that I'm not aware of, I still can go out and ask the questions to the audience that supposedly is creating this hype, where you can go out in your own marketplace and ask the kids in your own market, like, hey, have you heard of this artist? Have you heard of this song? I'm always asking questions. I think as programmers, we have a responsibility to pay attention at all times, to create self-awareness at all times about what's going on around us. So whether I'm at the mall, walking around with my niece, we're doing some shopping, I'm listening to what's playing in the mall, I'm watching how people react to what's being played. If I'm standing in line at a restaurant and I see some kids and they're singing along to a record or they're doing something on their phone, I want to know what they're talking about. So I think we have to pay attention and be able to use that as a filter to filter through bullshit to see what's real or what's not. I think anything can be manipulated in life, but I think what's true is what's true. And if we have a lot of self-awareness about our environment, it really helps to sort out what's real and what's really unnecessary hype.
I expect bullshit. I expect it as soon as I pick up the phone. I mean, because who said that's terrible? I yell at bullshit to me all the time. But I'm only saying this because she spoke up. Because there's one record rep that I would not mention that I don't listen to anything he says, because everything is the greatest thing ever. It's curing cancer every time he sends me a record. And I'm like, dude, there ain't that many hits in the world. Like, stop hyping it so much. And his own reps hit me like, oh, I'm sorry, he emailed that shit to you. Like, and it's hilarious. But he's right sometimes, because we're all right sometimes. But see, I have the greatest music conversations with Allen, and that's why I'm calling her out. because we talk about records that might not even be hers. That's that passion level. She's like, this ain't even mine, but check this out, because I mean, you know, whatever. Don't give him my slide. And then she kicks in with the bullshit. And then it'll be a couple hits. It'll be, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, but you can't have 11 hits on a record. So pick and choose. And I'll tell you, like, you mean about rolling up the kids? I'm the creepiest dude in the Chipotle. Last week, we're thinking of doing the show. We got a concert coming up, and we were making a decision between acts. I see 7 high school, college, freshman-y kids up there eating their burrito bowls. And I'm just watching them, looking so creepy, because I'm trying to listen to their conversation. And then as I'm walking, I throw myself into their conversation, and half of them are like, what does this man want? I'm like, y'all like hip-hop? Like I'm about to offer him candy or something.
Come here, little girl.
And then like 2 questions in, one of the dudes was like, ain't you on the radio? And then it warmed up, and it ended up being a great conversation. I could have went to jail. You know what I'm saying?
Start with that next time. Like,
Yeah,
start with
I
the
might need to start with that. Yo, hey, freak show, what up? First time caller, right? Okay. Put your guns down. Like, but they really, you know, were passionate about music. They loved music. They told me where they find it. And I mean, that was a great little perceptual deal, but it was in the Chipotle. And I mean, we have to take those moments. We're charmed. We have a charmed life, a blessed life to do this, but our work hours are a little crazy. It might need to be worked in a Chipotle. I might need to talk to a few of these people about real passion records, but the bullshit is always going to be there. We just got to always sift through it.
So as an extension to finding out about the music from different people, all of you have mixers. Obviously, some won awards last night. Congratulations. It's pretty much a yes or no answer. Do you have any of them in a music meeting?
Yes.
Terry, yes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of you?
Absolutely.
Them and other people in the building that, you know, that I'm just like,
Yes.
okay, hey, I just call people in all the time. Listen to this. Right? I mean, you've been in, you might have been. I mean, there's record reps that are, when you come visit, it's like, okay, there's people in the hallway. Come on in, listen to what they're playing. And I just get that feedback immediately.
Rob, you didn't say anything.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. We won last night. And
But you don't listen to them.
congratulations everybody who won for KTU last night. They are amazing in what they do. But it isn't set up that way where I am. We don't have it so that the mixers come into the meeting. I know there are some mix shows that are basically.
So I
where-
employ Tommy Nappy for nothing?
Did he tee this up, Tommy Nappy? Right before he sent the email about Clean Bandit before I got here? Yeah.
And he's going to keep hitting you up on
Delete.
your long drive home. Nappy, get in his car.
Yeah. No, but here's the thing. I also have something on what you were just talking about. Because you got to Jill and I, but you didn't finish all the way down. I think one of the things with the metrics is that I'm not sure everybody knows how to interpret all the metrics either. So, you know, getting back to the thing about Shazam, you know that Shazam's trying to hold you guys for ransom to try and get you to spend money so that you can look at the metrics more deeply. To me, to be able to see a Shazam, number 1 in Shazam is different than number 1 Shazam in Miami. It's different than number 1 in Orlando, as far as the number of people. For me, I have a problem looking at all those metrics because I don't know, with my call out, I know how I have it set up, so I'm looking at stuff that I predetermine. I don't know what their metrics are, you know, and that's the thing that's tricky. Or when they quote satellite radio. Satellite radio does not distribute what their listening is. So you have no way of knowing really if Hits 1 plays a song, like who's that really reaching? And I think as they start to tell us more of the metrics behind the actual curtain, then that would probably make programmers be a little bit more inclined to look at some of the data more closely. Like M-Score, you can actually go into it and see. And I think that's why that's a metric that people have grown a little bit more. There's still some bullshit with M-Score too, but I mean, I think you're a little bit more comfortable with that because you can actually see that. Where Shazam, I mean, it's really one of those things where, okay, so is number 1 in Shazam 500 tags? Is it 50 tags? Is it 5 tags? What is it? But I do know that they're telling you which stations are tied to the tags now. and they're not giving us that data necessarily.
No, we could see a lot of data. We're also working on being able to see the ages, the demographics as well, and making sure we are getting tagged in Levittown, Union, and Staten Island. Very important, places for your diaries. I'm not busing students in and giving them phones to Shazam in that market, but it's not a bad idea.
Not yet.
Not yet. Or maybe I'm talking to Alyssa Pollock about all our friends in Staten Island and doing our tagging there. There's always ways around the system, and I'm sure people are trying to figure that out.
I think it's when you get like I said before, when you get things to align though, like in other words, if
Yeah.
you know that you're playing a song and then you see the Shazam on it and you see the streams, then your comfort level as a programmer, and this is just speaking in general, some people don't pay any attention to any of that. It's they go on their gut, they give it a shot. It would be great if the whole world was built on that. But I think there's a security thing. A lot of people are in positions where they're worried about their job. We're judged by a PPM methodology, which is probably not the most perfect world. I mean, and the other thing you got to remember is, wouldn't it be great if we programmed our radio stations for everybody in the listening area and not just the minute amount of people that hold meters? Because that's really what the reality is here. That would change this game and this conversation totally if we took PPM out of this.
I know.
And so-
I think we could all blast
And then
PPM, but we
1,200
have to
people
live
would
with
be
it.
deciding your fate, or, because, that's the
True.
sad part.
But that's the reality, because our relationship would be different, John. As record label people and programmers, you probably wouldn't be as disappointed in the speed to action on our side, because we're basically being judged by a methodology that determines our ratings and then determines our revenue.
I completely understand that. I'm going to turn it over to Carrie, who may want to grab some questions out of the
Yeah,
audience.
do we have
about
any
5 minutes.
any questions from the audience?
Listen, Pollock, any questions?
All right. Do you want me to go that way first? Hold on. I'll get over to you in a second. Alyssa, who's the team captain for the radio team for Music Feud, coming up here in about 10 minutes.
They'll cheat as usual.
Appointment setting right there,
Right.
PPM.
That was a great PPM tease there, Carrie. I like that. Music Feud coming up in 10 minutes.
By the way, Staten Island does rule the KTU audience, so thank you for the plug, Willis. One of the things that I see sitting in the middle of the two sides is, internally in our company, and certainly because I also talk to the other companies as it relates to MediaBase and all the research products we have, there is definitely more and deeper insights on the label side than there are available to the radio side, and I think that's been changing now with BuzzAngle and some of the new products that we've been incorporating into our conversations. But I think just as a tip, because I am in so many of these conversations on a daily basis, is, to Miller's point, putting more context to some of the information that you guys see, because coming and saying, oh, there's 5 million streams, but putting context in terms of, yes, but 80% of those were from search versus from a playlist, or only 18% was skipped at 30 seconds, and so because you guys do have deeper information, I think it would be more helpful, and it would help the process if you gave a little bit more context to the radio side in terms of what that data means, and explaining to them so they can understand how to better incorporate that into the data that they're using, if that makes sense. So.
Very good point. Thank you. Joe, we need to get their attention for more than 5 minutes to be able to go through all that. Like, I had a 5-minute meeting with Rob last week. It really went for an hour and a half, so it was great. We talked about boats for an hour and 20 minutes.
Hang on.
And
We
then
got a
4
question in the
minutes on
back of the
Queen
room.
Bandit. Don't let Nappy speak.
My question is, I think, Rob, you bring up a very good point about the PPMs and how you're tied to them. But what about the new generation? The way that radio is being transmitted over the air, is there a big effort to go to AI? Because I think the younger kids, and when I asked the younger kids, I asked, do you listen to radio? And most of them say they don't, and they listen to all other outlets. To me, the way that terrestrial radio will make it into the future is by taking the great content they have and by getting it into new technology. Like, Alexa, I've had Alexa for a long time. I love it. I say, Alexa, play 10-10 Wins, and boom, it's on there. Is there an effort on the air or within the group strategy to get the signal out other ways than just through the web? Because that, to me, is going to be the holy grail where radio goes. And if it doesn't go there, it will, I feel it will be replaced.
The answer is yes, vehemently yes, across the board. It goes back to the earlier point about how do you get millennials to come to radio, is that we have to be where people are. And so that conversation is being had on the highest level, I'm sure, with all of our companies, because, you know, we'd like to be able to see past the next 5 years to know that our business is still valid and important, and we have a responsibility to reinvent ourselves on some level so that we make sure that we are where people are and where people are going to be. So absolutely, 100% yes.
But those millennials also, we reach them in other ways. Music is always going to be the star, but when J. Cole drops his album and we do a studio session and literally find the biggest fans of J. Cole through contesting and whatever for 2 weeks and put 30 kids in there who know his stuff better than he does, that's a moment that they got through radio. They didn't get that through AI and Alexa and all that, but I'm watching these kids pull so much from this artist that he's giving them stuff. I'm gonna play him 4 songs and that's it. And then he's like hitting his producer saying, send me the rest of the album. I'm in a room with 30 kids that know so much shit about this. I want to play them the whole thing. And these kids walk away with a oh my God experience. That's from radio. So we have to work harder while pushing the music, which is the star. We got to find other ways to reach them and show them our power.
Yeah, I'm just going to be the last question real quick, apparently. Last question. From a streaming standpoint, and just this is for myself personally, and I'm just curious how you guys feel, can radio, and do you care one way or the other, really, at the end of the day, you can sustain, in my opinion, and I would like to hear your views, but you can sustain a streaming story from radio and the airplay you guys give a song. But can you, and can radio, and just be honest, obviously, but can you create a streaming story? Can radio, in this day and age, drive a streaming story? And that's one part of the question. And the second question is, do you need a streaming story to actually believe in a song and care about the song one way or the other, to anyone?
It doesn't matter to me if you have a streaming story or not. You know, if I'm listening to new music and I hear something that I like and I do my own little sample and pull people into the office or talk to my 2 sons and their friends and what do you think of this? And if I get a general consensus that they go, yeah, I like that, it doesn't matter if it's being streamed or not.
Streaming works, and it means something in the early part of a record. If I don't know about it, if I'm not knowledgeable about it, then I see it on streaming, it means something to me because I see there is an audience out there for it, an audience that I wasn't aware of. Now, if somebody's bringing me something in the door, like Albie said, and it's not on streaming, it might be early, because I still treat streaming like it's too hip for the room, even though it's not. It's the hip kids there. They're fashion forward. They're chasing it, whether it's through the sift, through the whatever it is, skim, whatever, all that. I don't speak all that. But I'm saying, if they own that sheet, I think they're chasing it, and I want to see where that goes. But I'm not looking for a record I'm 300 spins in to be streaming. I'd love it to, but I have research for that. I'm looking for this for specific stuff that I might not be getting from the rest of the bags in the tool shed.
I just want to add, I think that radio will amplify the stream for your artists. And I think that on the flip side, if we're playing an artist that is unknown, we just had that conversation about local artists. Certainly they're streaming because they were an unknown artist. They achieved radio play because of gut and the vibe in that particular city. And so the radio support actually meant something and caused them to stream and reach some success and get some outside the market exposure.
Well, I want to thank John Boulos and this incredible group of panelists for participating today. We're going to take a quick picture. We're going to set the stage for Music Feud. Orlando Davis will magically transform in a couple of minutes here. And we've got a great radio team, a great label team. We ask you guys to stick around here in the theater. Music Feud, Family Feud. It's a great game. You guys are going to love it.